slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. Everything I do so instinctive and so passionate. Every word I move so descriptive like an adjective. I got a vendetta against people who patented being negative when you should be getting after it. I got facts over tracks, this and that, spitting slow, spitting fast. I could roast, I could gas, think I'm okay at last, but I don't know if that can erase all the past. And the pettiness, a reflection of the emptiness. Hilarious, you think you're worth my time, you're delirious. Mysterious, because you hide behind a fake exterior. Inferior, you know I'll always be a bit superior. Get off of me, this ain't no humble brag. I want you to hear words, you can say them back. I want you to feel free from the chains at last, and to believe in what you got, it was built to last, yeah. Now that I've been put through hell, I never got anyone's help. I had to do it all myself. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.
All right, y'all, we're here. We're live. You're watching Buster Unmasked. And before I forget, look, like this video, share this video, and go to Buster H.R. Johnson on YouTube and subscribe. Hit that notification bell. That way you know when videos are coming out. That way you don't even have to worry about it. Look, guys, my guest tonight has given 47 years to the professional wrestling business. He has shared the ring with the who's who in professional wrestling, held multiple championships across multiple companies, and he is a bona fide true pro wrestling legend. And you know, there's only a few precious gems in the world, and this guy is one of those in professional wrestling. I bring to you none other than the golden boy, Chick Donovan. Mr. Donovan.
Yes, sir. That's quite an intro there. And I don't know if I can stand up to be, follow that intro or not, but we sure gonna get a good shot today.
Oh yeah, that intro is just all that is a reflection of your career, man. You already lived up to that. You already made that entrance.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. It's been a long road. It's been a hard road, but it's been a good road. I've had the opportunity to work with so many good old stars, Ric Flair, Stan Hansen, you name them one after another. It's been just a great career, and I came up, I think, at the right time and had the right mentors. And Ole Anderson and Stan Hansen was another, Bill Eadie was another mentor. Just one after another, I could sit here all day and name mentors. And it was just a good time to come up in pro wrestling.
Yes, sir. Let me just say this right off the bat. I want to thank you so much for coming on, giving us some of your time, man. It's my honor. It's my pleasure to have you here. And, man, I'm ready to talk wrestling with you. You got a big event coming up on November 2nd in Clarksville, Arkansas.
Yes, sir. And I'm just itching. I can't wait. November 2nd, I've been training at the gym twice a day to get ready to be there because I just can't wait to be there in Clarksville. It's been a long time since I've been in Arkansas, and I think the only time maybe in 81 back at Hope, Arkansas.
Arkansas.
I'm literally looking forward to being there on the 2nd.
Yeah, it's going to be a big deal. Look, we're going to plug the show. I got a graphic we're going to pull up. We're going to plug the talent, all that. But before we get into that, man, I want to learn a little bit about Chick Donovan. If you don't mind, let's start out from the beginning, take us through a little bit of your upbringing and how you even got interested in pro wrestling.
Back in about 75, I guess it was, that I was talking to some of my folks and family and maybe friends. I think I want to be a professional wrestling. I saw it one time on TV. In fact, I saw it back in years ago in '52. Gorgeous George, original Gorgeous George was on there in that year. But I saw it one time around '75. And I said, well, I think I'm going to be a wrestler. He said, you can't be no wrestler. There's no way you can be a wrestler. I was about 120 pounds. I was working 4 full-time jobs as a firefighter and 3 hospital jobs on the side. And but you can't be no pro wrestler. Now, 50 years later, I might be going in the Guinness Book of World Records as the oldest active wrestler. So that means you can do anything you want to do if you put your mind to it. Nobody can stop you but yourself.
Yes, sir. I believe that 100%, man. And you've had a stellar career through the years. Honestly, I growed up watching you. I'm 50. Just to kind of put it in perspective for you, I'm 50. So, and I growed up watching you. I'm originally from Helena, Arkansas, so obviously Channel 5, Memphis Wrestling, CWA, even before that's my home wrestling, man. I remember seeing you as a little kid in Memphis.
Wow.
You was actually part of the original First Family, right?
Yes, sir. I went into Memphis the first time in '81, I think it was, with Tojo Yamamoto. I was in his tutelage. And then Jimmy Hart, the famous Jimmy Hart, got me into the First Family. The First Family of Wrestling was such a famous group there in Memphis, and will always be probably the top group ever in Memphis. And I was so proud to have been a part of that.
Yeah, man. Obviously, yeah, I'm with you. It's definitely still to this day the top group ever, top faction ever in Memphis, at least from my generation. Speaking of Jimmy Hart, you actually had a wrestling match against Jimmy Hart where you actually won the AWA. It was the AWA version then, Southern Heavyweight title, right?
Yes, sir, I did. It was, well, in Memphis, they do all different kinds of matches, from tear-off clothes matches. So Jerry Lawler was the kind of runs the whole Memphis area thing there, and he's so innovative and so creative. But I did. It came down to the point where he had the belt and he had to challenge someone, and when it came time, so he picked me to challenge. So we had a little match, and I was rewarded the Southern Heavyweight Championship belt right there in Memphis.
Well, talk to me a little bit about having to wrestle Jimmy Hart in the ring. Now, I'm with you 100%. Here's the thing, and this is a question for you. Perfect guy to answer this. Nowadays, some pro wrestling is known as sports entertainment. I feel like Memphis was doing that kind of entertaining wrestling long before Vince McMahon ever got a hold to it.
Well, like I said, Jerry Lawler was quite an innovator of wrestling, and Jimmy Hart and the whole crew there that was on top. Jeff Jarrett was a youngster at that time, but Jerry Jarrett was the owner of the wrestling when I was there, and they would have meetings, and it was really creative. They had all types of matches, and it sold out every night. We did about 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 miles a week on the road. Like on Monday night, I think we were in Memphis there, and it was always a sellout. And we had to be in Louisville, Kentucky on Tuesday. So that was like an 8-hour drive that night. So we put a lot of time on the road in Memphis. But there's so many good towns from Evansville, Indiana to, I can't remember all the different towns. But Tupelo, Mississippi. I stopped by to see Elvis on the way home one time. Of course, he, at his home. But
yes,
we had in Tupelo was quite a place too. We had the concession matches every so often, where we threw ketchup and mustard and all this kind of stuff in and out of the concession. Just crazy kind of matches there in Memphis, and it was always really creative. And the houses were always filled because it was such interesting wrestling.
Yeah, and look, everybody still tries to do the concession stand matches today. They're still doing them. So let's kind of rewind, because I like to jump around a little bit.
All right.
Take me into you getting into wrestling. If I'm thinking right, you debuted in 76 or 7?
Well, in 76, I worked independently. I was trained in Macon, Georgia when I was a fireman, and like I said, I was working 3 other full-time jobs, so I had to quit one of those so I'd have time to train every night. But we trained. I was 120 pounds when I began training. I had to put 100 pounds on. It took me about a year's time of training and to put that 100 pounds on. Now I'm ready to go on the road. But we had a lot of matches there independently. But and I worked for Lars Anderson for a year or so, and then I went to Ole. He told me to go see Ole Anderson at TBS, so I did. And Ole hired me in 1979. And some of those tapes are still being shown now. I had brown hair. I still had the fireman look. When I was wrestling Hulk Hogan at that time, his first day into Atlanta, and I had his first match there. But I was still, like I said, still a fireman at that time. So, but then from then on, I had to make that decision whether to quit the fire department and go full time in wrestling, because I'm one that wants to give everything I got into whatever I'm doing to be the best I can be at it. Yes, so I decided to quit the wrestling and quit the fire department, and I went on the road wrestling. And Louisiana was one of my first stops. No, Knoxville, Tennessee. Some funny stories in Knoxville, Tennessee. I had a 74 Pinto station wagon. Me and I guess the what they call themselves. I can't remember what they call it, but they were 200 pounds, 300 pounds apiece, and I was 200 whatever. And all that baggage in that 74 Pinto station wagon, water running out of the front of the radiator, blue smoke coming out of the tailpipe. And we were putting up them hills of Tennessee and put in neutral and just, kind of stroll down the other side. Had no money, no food. But we were on the road wrestling. We want to be wrestlers. So, yeah, you pay the price to be a wrestler. But we made those towns, and things got, a little more fruitful and a little bit better as well. But all those things have to come into play. You do your time. You pay your price. It ain't no free lunches. You have to pay your price and pay your dues to get any type of, I think, wrestling or whatever it may be you want to accomplish. But it's always good to pay those dues, and then what good times are, because you know what the bad times were, and you can differentiate the difference between good times and bad times. It makes the good times a whole lot better, and understand how to appreciate them better.
Yes, sir. And honestly, when you're trying to break in the wrestling business, I'm sure y'all had might have been tough times, but I bet y'all had some really good times in that Pinto.
Yeah, when I went to Ole in '79, he hired me for TBS. Scott Irwin was the first guy who created the slam from the top rope, superplex, or whatever you want to call it. I think I took one of the very first ones, and on the way down, it felt like a long way when I hit that mat. But it was quite a. But he was quite an innovator, and he created that move, that good finishing move. But he was a good guy, but he ended up passing away with cancer or something later years. But yes, Phil Orton was his brother. They were like the Cowboys. They were really good talent.
Well, speaking of the Irwins, they were in the early mid '80s. They were pretty big.
Can you turn yourself up just a little bit?
Yes, sir. Give me just a second here. Let me see what I got going. Can you hear me any better?
Not quite yet.
What about now?
No, that's good. I won't have to strain so much to hear.
Okay. Speaking of the Irwins, and I want to say probably 1985 or 6, they were real big in the AWA, and you did some time in the AWA, right?
I did. The AWA was actually Memphis was under the AWA flag.
Yes, sir.
Minnesota was the main town, well, one of the main territories, and Gagne and the AWA. And a lot of guys came out of that territory. The Rockers came out, and they were quite successful, came out of the AWA.
Yes, sir. Talk to me about Vern Gagne for a minute. I actually had Action Mike Jackson on last night, and he told me to tell you hi.
Oh, did he want to tell you that, Mike Jackson? Mike Jackson is not quite as old as I'm, 78. He's 70 whatever, but he's still flying out of the top rope and doing all the stuff, walking the ropes, and he's quite a little athlete. He was a school teacher, now retired, but he was a smart guy. He's done quite well in the wrestling business.
Yes, sir. He was a real cool guy, man. I really enjoyed my conversation with him last night, but he told me definitely tell you he said hi. And me and him talked about some of the different bookers or owners. Bill Watts. We talked, obviously, Jerry Jarrett. So Vern Gagne, that's one thing that I meant to talk to him about the AWA a little bit, and we just kind of never got there. But talk to me about Vern Gagne a little bit.
Well, I can't say too much about Vern Gagne. I know it was Greg. I think it was Greg Gagne, his son, a little bit
yes,
better.
sir.
But I was to go in and do a thing, a tag team thing, in Minnesota, but it never worked out. So I never actually only went and did a few shots in Kansas City for them, but never actually were in that territory. So I don't really know a lot about them personally. But I know Greg. I worked with him through the years. He was in and out Georgia in different places. So I guess the acorn don't fall too far from the tree, I suppose. And
yes, sir.
So Vern had to be a good guy as well as his son.
Yes, sir.
Well, great talent.
Yes, sir. Let's kind of backtrack to Memphis then. During your time at Memphis, I know you had a run with Jerry Lawler, and you also had a feud with Tommy Rich. Talk to me about.
Well, with Jerry Lawler, we had the first time when you go into Memphis, I was always the heel. The heel, he has the first match with the heel when he comes in the territory, and the heel always comes out on top. But he always goes under, and he never goes under until Jerry gets on top when he's leaving out. Now, Tommy Rich, a story about Tommy Rich, how I got to Memphis was, I guess, with Tommy Rich and TBS. I never really had a feud with him, but we had a match on TBS. And go back years past when I was in California, it was a referee called Red Shoes Dugan. He was a post police officer, which he refereed the original Gorgeous George. So he was very wise. So we were in California dressing room one night, and I wore the glasses and had all the different gimmicks I wore in the ring. I said, Red Shoes, what should I wear in the ring tonight? And he said, always wear all your gimmicks so you never know who's watching. And from that, I took that to TBS. And the one time Tommy Rich and I had a match, and I had all my gimmicks on, and I did all the stuff. And Jerry in Memphis saw that, and he really liked it. At the time, I was in Louisiana working with Bill Watts when he actually called Louisiana and got me to come to Memphis. So I finished up with Bill Watts and went on into Memphis and started that. Probably one of the highlights of my career right there in Memphis with that much.
Well, let me ask you this. You mentioned a second ago that I think it's when you first went to Atlanta, you still had the fireman looking stuff. When did the Golden Boy come to be? And how did it come to be?
Well, when Olin hired me for TBS, we worked different towns every night. And one was Columbus, Georgia. Fred Ward was a famous booker or guy who ran the shows. But we were sitting in the dressing room one night, and I always wanted to be kind of fancy or whatever. So every time I changed trunks, I changed shoestrings so they'd match. I kind of always matched up stuff. But one night in the dressing room there in Columbus, Georgia, I was sitting there, and Wrestling 2 was sitting across from me, one of my great mentors, and I had on gold lame shoestrings to go with my gold lame trunks. He said, you ought to be the Golden Boy. So, okay, Mr. 2, I became the Golden Boy. And then from then on, I worked to become you don't just become it overnight. I think it takes time. And one thing I like to tell the young guys when they want to get a gimmick, Wrestling 2 gave me that gimmick, but you have to be your gimmick. You can't be something you can't be. You and your gimmick have to be one and the same to be real deal, I think. You have to become that. You have to become that image that you want to portray as, whoever it may be. You have to become that character. When they get too far out, where are you going to go? Cut somebody's head off to fulfill their gimmick. So it has to be realistically, I think. But Wrestling 2 gave me the Golden Boy gimmick, and I've used it ever since, and I've been proud of it.
Well, I mean, like you said, I feel like you have to have it. He could have said Golden Boy. It worked for you because you had that in you. That was really part of who you really were, who you really are.
Now, every show I go to, I have my car washed. I'm dressed to a T. And I remember at a show one time, somebody said my gimmick was the golden. Somebody said that no, that ain't the gimmick. He is the gimmick. He is the golden boy. So I always dressed and had a presentation because I felt that was my job as a wrestler to appreciate and to celebrate being a professional wrestler, being an entertainer. I think you should look the part to be the part. So
Yes,
I
sir.
always dress. I still do. I have my car shined because I'm the man now, I guess, in a lot of cases. So I dress the part, and that makes me feel comfortable. But I am the golden boy, and the golden boy is me.
Yes, sir.
Now, and that's only in that arena. That's when I leave that arena. It ain't the same thing. It's different. But that is in the arena in that moment. What's what people expect of me when I drive. I'm the superstar. When I leave, I ain't no more. So you got to know who you are and who you ain't, really.
Yes, sir. 100%. Let me ask you this, man. There's this big resurgence, like on November 2nd. It's not only going to have wrestling matches, but it's a fan fest type thing. It's a meet and greet. I think from 2 to 6, the fans are going to be able to come in, meet you guys, get autographs, take pictures, buy merchandise. But let me ask you this, man. It's giving guys it's giving old school wrestling a resurgence. Over probably the past 10 years, a lot of times these fan fest draw more people when they don't even have wrestling matches. It's crazy. It's wild how they've there's so many people dying to hear all these stories from wrestlers. Just
Now, I've been to a fan fest in Charlotte a few times, and then the last one I went to was in Providence, Rhode Island. It was in a beautiful hotel, and it must have been several thousand fans there, and buying different things, gimmicks, and whatever the guys were selling. But that was quite a fan fest. But those are always good because you can see one-on-one with the fans and get to know them, and they get to know you, and that's always a good thing.
Yes, sir. I remember as a kid, they didn't really have those. They might have been something to that effect ever so often, but not like they are now. Now they're huge and they draw thousands of people. There's multiple versions of these fan fests all over the country, probably all over the world, and it's kind of rejuvenated a lot of guys, man. Interest in a lot of guys.
It does. You get to know people more, I think, more personable when you get to meet them one-on-one. But reminds me of a guy who drew cartoon characters who came from Oregon to Charlotte, North Carolina, for me to sign that picture. I think it's on the internet somewhere, but he drew a character of me. It was a very good character, piece of a cartoon character, whatever it may have been. But he came always marking me to sign that. And that was quite a thrill for me to be able to meet him. And what his investment into the wrestling means a whole lot. We have to get people to invest in what we do, what we love doing, for it to carry on to the future. We have to make good investments in the business. Nowadays, it's not quite as invested, but it's still good. And I always enjoy going and meeting the fans that way.
Yes, sir. And here's the thing, man. Like I said, you put 47 years into the wrestling business, and you're still out here doing it. What keeps you getting in the ring and stuff?
Well, that's another story. I do a lot of Christian shows with Hope Wrestling and other organizations. I think I might have been in the junk too much when my $1 million call came from Vince. Now the Lord has me on. I was going through the motion, but I wasn't on point. I missed the point at that time. I think between the ears was missing the point in a lot of cases and a lot of times. But now I'm on point, and the Lord's letting me wrestle like I should have been 30 years ago at this point, at this age. It's the only reason I can be accountability for it. It's the Lord put me out there to be able to influence the kids around the ring, because that's the years, 20 years from there, the fans 20 years from now, and be able to go and leave a legacy with the youngsters in the ring of what a real match feels like that I learned back from Ole and all that bunch. And so it's quite a thrill to be able to be on point now. And I teach that point wherever I go, talk about that point. It's so important to stay on point. Your point being maybe the next grade in your schoolwork, or your homework that night is the next point. Be ready for class the next day, but stay on point. I think it's very important.
Yes, sir. I'm a big believer in faith and fate, and I think God gets you where you need to be when you're supposed to be there. You know.
Yes, sir.
I just believe that. I believe that, like you said, you felt like maybe when you got the call from Vince that maybe you wasn't doing everything you needed to do. Maybe that was just part of your road to get you to where you are today. You know.
It had to be, because everything I think is in time, and now I'm able to enjoy what I could have back then, but maybe I wasn't ready for it. I don't think I was ready for it at that moment. Now I'm getting able to enjoy the fruits and of having the spot that I could have had back then, but I'm having it now. So I'm still getting, before I go out, I'm still getting the benefit of having the spot. I worked so hard for almost 50 years now, 49 years, I think it is, from when I started to where I wanted to go in the wrestling. But now I'm able to enjoy that spot.
Yes, sir, 100%. And here's the thing: you've seen a lot of changes in the wrestling business from the time you started to today. Talk to me a little bit about that. How do you feel about the evolution, I guess, of the wrestling business from what it was at one point to what it is today?
It has changed a lot. We used to, back on TBS, to be watch some of those matches. It was wrestling. We were in the ring when the bell came down. It wasn't any music. It wasn't all that. It wasn't all the hoopla. We were in the ring and we wrestled. Now, in 1950, whatever year it was, I had a one transistor radio. It was a big deal. One transistor had an AM channel.
Yes,
Our
sir.
TVs had two channels on it. It was a 21-inch black and white TV. So get to a point. Now we got a 75-inch TV, and it's all color and all the stuff. So it goes from one era to another. And I think it's how you perceive the changes in it, how you perceive those, what changes you grow up with to be from here to now. What they do now is, to me, is not so much of the emotions of the fans. Like, we worked on strictly on their emotions. Because years ago, the people that got home watching the Assassins on TV would beat up the chair if they pulled somebody's hair, because they had his emotions. But now it's a lot of tremendous athletic stuff they're doing in the ring now. All the flying around, all the stuff they're doing, just tremendous. But I think they missed it. You know, it's just a change from that one transistor radio now to what we're doing right now. The change in electronics and everything else in the world's changed, and so we have to learn to go with it. We just go with the changes and accept it as the changes happen. I think people get used to the new changes, and just remember the old, but accept the new.
Yes, sir. I got into business in 1992, and even in those 30 years, man, it's a lot different it's a lot different now than it was then. Even for me, and it's just, I feel like wrestlers now work more for the pop than the true emotion, like you were talking about. I don't feel like they go for that investment. I feel like as long as they get that big pop out of the crowd off of whatever they do, their spot or their move, they feel like that they're doing their job, when in actuality, as a kid, here's a scenario. My grandpa, I told Mike this yesterday, my grandpa was blind. But every single Saturday morning for Memphis Wrestling, and Saturday evening, 6:05 for the Superstation, he would get right up to the TV. He could kind of make out shapes, but he couldn't see. But he would sit there and listen to every bit of it. And I would sit right there with him. And even without him being able to see it, man, he would get into that. He would get drawn into that emotion. And even after I got in the wrestling business, we never, ever told him any different. We never smartened him up. We never told him wrestling was this or that. We let him believe, because it's amazing when people believe. And here's the thing, it wasn't like he didn't know it was a work, but these people come and buy tickets to the wrestling matches because they want to believe, and they want characters and people they can believe in.
You know, it could be a work, but when I go in the ring, it's a total shoot.
There you go.
For the reason, because I gave up a career as a fireman, paramedic, and all that I love so dearly, and I gave up a whole life to go into wrestling. So, in retrospect, that was my choices. Nobody made me do that, but it was my choice to do that because I wanted to see how far I could go. I was going to had a thought in mind about, you know, age. I forget where I'm going, but I really forgot where I'm going with that. But,
Hey, don't sweat it. I do the same thing.
too many chairs in the head. Too many chairs in the head. Now the chairs in the head. Well, I'll tell you, the ring don't know work. I've got a fracture in the back, a fracture in the neck, and knees replaced. Wrestling is it can be a work if you want to use that terminology, but we take all the bumps. You take a 20-foot fall off a cage. When you hit the floor, you hit the floor. But when you are an entertainer or you're a wrestler or whatever, you want to entertain them folks. So that's when I love the emotions. When I go in the ring, I'll let the people tell me what to do. I don't try to make it up before I get there. I let the people guide me around the ring. I listen to their emotions. I bring them up. I bring them down. But they let me know where to go. Once I tell the kids, once they learn how to wrestle, they won't be doing all that junk in the back anymore. Just go have it. They just go do it. You just go do it. You ain't gotta think about it. You just do it, and the fans will carry you through it.
I believe
if you know how to wrestle.
Yes, sir.
One of the biggest. I play music at church, but one of the biggest that I think kind of related help. I was trying to think of the word, but the help I got in music was know your neck and listen to the music. It's the same. Know how to wrestle. Know your neck. Mean know where all the chords on that neck of that bass is. Listen to the music, and your fingers will automatically go to those chords. You hear A, you hear A, you know where they are because you know your neck. But if you know you're wrestling, you hear the fans, they'll tell you right where to go. You tell them where you want to go, then they will tell you what to do. If you tell them not, don't you dare tell me about my big ears. Don't you, then they say, ears, you can cover them up, and, so you do a lot of stuff without falling down. I try to teach your kids you can have a heck of a match without falling down. You ain't got to fall down to have a wrestle. But if you listen to the people that guide you around the ring and you have their emotions. When I play music, I have their emotions. When I wrestle, I carry their emotions with me. And that's where you get the pop. That's what I was thinking about. So where you get the pop is from the emotions. You bring them up, you sit them down, and then when the heel goes up, comes off that top rope, and like boom, bam, then you boom. Now they want to start a whole nother match. Now it's time to go home. They don't know when it's time to go. And that's what my job is now, and leaving that legacy of letting them know when it's time to go home. When it's all over, what are you going to do from there? It's all over. It's time to go. That's what I love doing. That's my job now is the legacy is telling them when it's go. That's one of the biggest things I try to teach. That was all over three hours ago. And you're still out there doing something, but it was over a long time ago.
Yes, sir. And I feel like one of the best guys, obviously I'm partial growing up where I growed up. I actually was lucky enough to get to see all different kind of wrestling. I got UWF or Mid-South for a while out of a Little Rock channel. Obviously Memphis Wrestling, Superstation TBS. Ever so often, for some reason, out of the Little Rock station, we'd get World Class. Not all the time, but ever so often, a show would pop in. You just had to be there waiting on it to see if it was going to. Right. And I feel like, just like you said, you don't have to go out there and fall down a lot to get the crowd into it, to make them invest. And I feel like Jerry Lawler is one of the very best at that, because Jerry Lawler can do a lot more than people think he can, but he never had to for some reason, because he was able to make you feel his emotion, make you feel the emotion he wanted you to feel.
Right. That's the art. That is the art of wrestling, which has been lost through the years. It's incredibly art to be able to move people around with what you're doing. But if you listen to what they give you, then that tells you where to go, and you already got them on the page. You already got them because they told you what to do, and they just following you, and you following them because they told you where to go, so to speak. But you just have to be aware of what the fans are giving you when you go in that ring and follow them. And that's the emotions that you see. But go back to talking about Dallas wrestling now. That was an incredible time for me to be there in Dallas and going to Texas Stadium and we're talking about Texas Stadium. To get off the track a minute, I was able to be wrestling in all the major buildings. I think the big dome in San Francisco, the Cow Palace, Tokyo Dome in Japan, 100,000 people. Texas Stadium was 60-some thousand. The big building in New Orleans was the Superdome. I was able to go into all those entities, and it was quite thrilling to go in front of 100,000 people.
I can't even imagine, man. Like I told Mike last night, guys like you are the guys that made me want to be a professional wrestler. It wasn't. It was the emotion that you guys could evoke out of me or draw me into, and man, I just can't imagine getting to wrestle in front of 100,000 people anywhere. How is that? It's got to be deafening. The crowd's got to be deafening when you're in there.
It's quite a feeling to go to the ring from that beginning spot, like on the football field in Texas Stadium, and you got that many people calling your name and just cheering you on, and it's quite a feeling. But you know what? Adulation of that nature is a lot of responsibility. You have to pay that back by you work in the ring. It ain't no free lunch there. You have to pay that back and satisfy their emotions for what you do in the ring, for what they gave you to the ring. So you have to keep that in account as well, as I think. You have to pay the fans back for what they give you.
Yes, sir, 100%. I want to jump ahead a little bit, if you don't mind. I think somewhere around 1995, you stepped away from wrestling for a while, right?
No, sir.
Okay.
In '86, I moved to LaGrange and got in the gym business, but I had a couple of TV shows, but I did wrestling locally here. I think especially, I was still working with WCW at that time, different places around. But I started my own little organization here in the 90s, but I was still doing WCW at the same time. We had a little TV show here, and I was still doing WCW. And somehow on the internet, they got where I would look like I'd been out of wrestling for a while, but I was still working around different places. But we had a TV show here in the Grange, and we do real well. And I'd like to mention Bo Buchanan. He made it on up he started with me, and he made it on up to WWE or WWF, and he has a school now, and he's running shows on his own now. But that's just one of the people we started out, I think, back in those days. Now he's become real successful from our shows.
Yes, sir. I had the privilege of him beating me up in 1997 a time or two on USWA TV. Awesome dude. Huge guy. But a really cool guy. You've had a couple of, at least one I want to ask you about opponents. The Ultimate Warrior. Everybody's kind of got, everybody's got their opinion on this guy. How was it to actually be in the ring with the Ultimate Warrior, in your opinion?
I've never been in the ring with him. I'll tell you the story on the Ultimate Warrior. When I was living in Marietta, Georgia, right outside of Atlanta, when I was working in Atlanta, we lived there. And I worked out at this gym with Jim Hellwig with the Ultimate Warrior, but he wasn't the Ultimate Warrior. He was Jim Hellwig at that time going to chiropractic school. So we working out, and Joe Weider called him from California because he was Mr. America. He'd won all these different contests amateurly. But Joe Weider from out California called Jim to come to California. And he asked my opinion. Well, should I go? Should I finish school? I said, well, sometimes you only get one phone call to go to the next level. So you can always go back to school, but you may not always get a chance to go with the big boys in California. So he went to California, and he worked there for a little bit, but then he got into wrestling. Red Bastien saw him. The biggest guy I've ever seen, most symmetrically built guy, was Jim Hellwig. Red Bastien saw him and trained him for wrestling. And he trained Sting to go with him as the Blade Runners as a tag team.
Yes, sir.
So Jim called me through the years and asking my advice on different stuff. He went from there to Memphis. He was in Memphis, and when he was in Memphis, he asked me about should he be making this money, whatever. I told him to go to Texas. Go to Texas and get on that big TV. That's where I had been. That TV goes all over the world. So he went to Texas as a Dingo Warrior. Sting was sick. Sting couldn't do any more at that moment, but he went on to Texas as a Dingo Warrior, and then Vince saw him in Texas on that big TV. But he had called me. Jim called me for advice all the way up till he got to there. When Vince called him, he never called me back again. He made his first $1 million on selling gimmicks at the WWF. But he worked in WWF, but like I said, I never wrestled him. We were just good friends, and he called me for advice through the years and became a millionaire, and he didn't call anymore. But I saw him when he was inducted into the Hall of Fame, and he passed away shortly that same year at the age 53.
Man,
but he was a good guy. We worked out together at the gym. I learned a lot from him in the weightlifting business, and we communicated quite a bit. But
until he got rich. Until he got rich.
Yeah, then I didn't hear from him anymore.
Yeah, man, that was crazy the way it was. Talk about fate. It's almost like that dude was waiting to get inducted in the WWE Hall of Fame.
He was really active the way he went around the ring, all of his whatever he did. I don't know about his wrestling ability. Wasn't maybe as good as some others, but he got himself over and he made the Hall of Fame. So that's all that matters. He became a millionaire from the business because he worked at it hard. He worked at it and he got his due.
Yes, sir. It just blew me away that he got inducted. And what was it? The Monday after? That's when he passed away.
Yeah, it's right after that inductee into the. So I remember seeing him on TV trying to get into the ring. He wasn't hardly able, but then he passed away the next few days. I think he was living in Arizona at the time.
Yeah, that's one of them things for me. When I say fate, I almost wonder if they would have waited another year or two to induct him, would he have lived 2 more years? Because it was almost like that's what he was waiting on to die.
Yeah, but I'd like to talk about another fellow that I worked with that's passed away now. I've worked with in the first family, Kevin Sullivan.
Yes, sir.
Kevin was probably the most innovative mind in the wrestling, the most creative mind. He was there with Dusty Rhodes. He was there with Jerry Lawler as far as being innovators and creating scenarios and really putting the wrestling out there in different capsules or whatever you want to call it. But he and I were working the first family together. We worked out the gym together. We did a lot of stuff, and he meant a lot to me in my career. I learned a lot from Kevin Sullivan. But he and I were real close. We roomed together. We rode together, and he was a great influence in my career, and then he just passed away not long ago, and I gave him a 10-bell count at our local shows here in town. But he was another great guy I learned a lot from, and was quite a creator in the business. A great mind.
Yes, sir. I never got to meet Kevin Sullivan, but, man, everybody I've ever talked to that does know him or did know him, I've never actually had anybody have a bad word about Kevin Sullivan at all whatsoever.
But he was a great wrestler. He was really good in that ring. He knew the wrestling business inside and out. That's what I said. He was one of the greatest mentally innovative minds in wrestling ever. I think came through that I ever knew anyway.
Yes, sir.
But I really miss him, and I saw him not long ago. In fact, I was at one of those signings in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I worked with his guy. He had a big guy, and he was the manager of the guy. It was the last time I saw him, and we had a match there that night after the autograph signing. And I got to work with him the last time I saw him, and I thought he was the manager. But it was pretty good to see him again and be able to work with him.
Yes, sir. Speaking of Fan Fest and signings, Saturday, November the 2nd. Let me get it right here. I got it. In Clarksville, Arkansas, y'all are going to have Pro Wrestling Legends show. It's yes, sir. It's put on by SD Enterprises in conjunction with Diamond State Wrestling. It's going to be at the Spike Fakim Exhibit Building at the fairgrounds in Clarksville. The Fan Fest, which you're going to be there signing autographs, taking pictures, selling merchandise, starts at 2, lasts till 6, and then bell time for the wrestling 7 p.m. It's going to be a big card y'all got coming up.
I don't have time to get dressed from 6 to 7. The Golden Boy takes an hour and a half just to get the boots put on at my age. You know, that's a struggle, Robert. You know, tying up all them boots at 80 years old. That's a job nowadays. But, you know, I'm just looking so much. I'm looking so forward to being there. And it's one of the highlights of my career coming up now, I think, there, right there in Clarksville. And I'm just really thankful that somebody looked out for me and from the Clarksville booking agents or whoever booked the shows, that they called me and give me the opportunity to be there to maybe almost start finishing out my career. I guess it's coming to an end sometime before long, and it's just great to be able to be there among all the fans in that area and be in the ring more time right up there in Clarksville. And I'm so excited about it, and I just can't wait to be there.
Yeah, it's a stacked show, man. You got the Grapplers are going to be there. I actually had Lynn Denton on the show a couple of months ago. Had a great conversation with him. You're going to be there. Action Mike Jackson's going to be there. Daughter of Terry Bam Bam Gordy, Miranda Gordy, she'll be there. Wildfire Tommy Rich, you know this dude, he'll be there.
That'd be good.
Dangerous Doug Gilbert will be there.
Wow. Is Tommy working?
You know, I would wrestling all over the place. Him and Doug do a lot of tag teaming around the Memphis area around here.
I'm doing a lot of work with Tommy in Kentucky, and in fact, I couldn't get a license in Kentucky. He said I was too old, but anyway, Tommy's there a lot with the guy who books us together with Mr. Hughes is one of us. Mr. Hughes might be there as well. I'm not sure, but he and I make a lot of trips together on the road from here from Atlanta to Kentucky. But yeah, I've seen Tommy and I get along really well. I really respect Tommy Rich for what he's done for the business and for where he started and what he's done all through the years. Always on the same card was in Atlanta, and he was always on top with Harley Race and all the greats that he worked with. And you know, Tommy, I don't think ever missed a spot in the ring. He was always right on time and was a great baby face there. And I think drew a lot of money and made a lot with wrestling is. And Georgia was Tommy Rich was one of those guys who helped that along with Ric Flair to make Georgia one of the top wrestling territories.
Yes, sir. Tommy Rich, like you said, babyface. Everybody says Ricky Morton's one of the best baby faces, but before Ricky Morton, when I was a little kid, Tommy Rich was the ultimate baby face. Right. He was one of the ultimate good guys in pro wrestling, man. I guess just right look, right time, right everything for Tommy Rich during that time.
Right, yeah. Who'd you mention just a minute ago? One of the tag team guys, Ricky Morton. I'll say something about Ricky Morton. Ricky Morton was one of the greatest, I think, wrestlers. Not a big guy, but he was just a great entertainer and a great wrestler in that tag team they had. They got over strong and made a lot of money around the country, and I think helped a lot of guys who worked with them. I worked with them at a time or two, and I think when you work with the guys at that level, it makes you a better worker at the same time. So I feel a lot of gratitude for Ricky Morton and being able to work with them and when they were together. It was just a great time in my career to really say something good about Ricky Morton, I think.
Look, Mr. USA, Tony Atlas is going to be there. You and Tony had any run-ins in the wrestling business?
Well, Tony Atlas and I rode to a town together once. Well, we were in Atlanta together. We went on tour I went on tour with Tony a lot with Vince, and Tony was doing 650 pounds on the bench. Tony was strong and big and but yeah, we made some towns together, and I saw him a while back, a couple of years ago, in some town. He was just there with Harley Race, not Harley Race, but I'm sorry, I can't remember the name sometimes. But we had a real cordial conversation. I got the original Georgia heavyweight belt that was on TBS, and he saw that belt and we had a little conversation about it because he held that belt at one time. But Tony was just a great physique. I mean, he had 24-inch arms. I measured him. It wasn't a shoot, that was a shoot. I mean, he had 24-inch biceps, and he was just a great athlete. He started when he was 16 years old under a blue hood because he was too young to be in the business. And he became quite an athlete.
Yeah, I remember him as a kid, man. He was huge, but he had this tiny waist. At that time, man, he had a slim waist.
19-inch waist and a 60-inch chest. This huge bone, man.
Right. Hey, the perfect 10 baby doll is going to be there. You and Baby Doll ever had a run-in the wrestling business?
Well, we're not in the business, but Baby Doll, when we used to go out of Dallas to Amarillo town, I think it was Amarillo. She and her mama ran that area where they went to the airport, picked up the guys, and did all the work around the guys, took care of the boys while we were there and whatever. But she was one of those guys. One of those girls that did that, and then she got into the business. But I never worked with her or against her or whatever, but she got in the business later years and did quite a job as Baby Doll.
Yes, sir. Look, ticket prices for this thing, it's going to be a huge event. November 2nd, Clarksville, Arkansas. The Spike for Kim exhibit building at the fairgrounds in Clarksville. Front row tickets, and I'm assuming, don't hold me to this, but I'm assuming this includes the meet and greet. Front row seats are $40. Second and third row seats are $30. And then general admission tickets are $20. Going to be a big thing. A lot of, like I said, it's stacked with legends from the wrestling business. Should be
Is it going to be inside or outside? Excuse me. Is it going to be inside or outside?
I would assume it's going to be inside. I mean, don't hold me to that either because I've never been there at this place, so I don't really know. But it sounds like it's going to be an inside venue, especially with the meet and greet and stuff. Surely they're not going to have y'all outside in the hot or the cold. You know what I mean?
What's the temperature up that way you think it's going to be? I know how to dress.
Man, I'm going to be honest with you. Right now, at nighttime, it's around 50 degrees. Midday, probably 80 degrees still.
Wow, that's nice.
So it's good either way. Look, man, we're going to start wrapping it up. But before we do, I've got a few more questions for you. One of them is, who is your favorite person, opponent, tag with, wrestle against? Who's the favorite guy or girl you've ever worked with in the wrestling business?
I would just say Ricky Steamboat. We had 2 or 3 TV matches. Generally, when you go on a TV match, they give you 2 to 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes from the time you start to it's over. But the matches we had, I don't know how he did it or how it went, but we went a long time in those matches. They're on your telephone. I think they're on recording on the public media. And I watched them back a couple times. They were really good matches. But another match I had with Ric Flair was another match that I really enjoyed. He followed me, and that's why I tell the kids when I go in the ring, just follow me, and I make it look like a million, brother. But if you don't follow me, then we're going home. I mean, you can't follow me. That's all you know, and we're going to the house. But Ricky Steamboat was a Christian man. He ran a gym there in Charlotte, and but he was just a grand person in the ring and out of the ring, and he treated me with so much respect. A lot of times, the underneath guys don't get a lot of respect from the top guys, but he was one that gave everybody respect, I think. But he treated me with such respect that I'll never forget it.
And talk about life.
I try to do the same thing with some of the guys. I would give them, just treat them with respect.
Yes, sir. And talk about lifelong good guys, baby faces. Ricky Steamboat, he's got to be right there with Tommy Rich and Ricky Morton as one of the ultimate baby faces in pro wrestling.
Yeah, he is. But talk about Flair though. Flair was the man. Flair was working an hour every night all around the country in all these different territories out of Charlotte, and just worked that hour, man. But he was such a good athlete, Ric Flair, man. Later years, he became a little consistent, but he was just great to work with. and I worked with him. I was on a lot of the same cards. In fact, he had me announced as Ric Flair in the ring one night in Orlando. I should, if yeah, in those days. Nowadays, I'm a lot. I think got a lot more smart between the ears. If he'd announced me again in the ring that way, I would do a Ric Flair match. I would that time I just stood there and didn't take the accolation, but if that's the word, I don't know. But anyway, I didn't want to take his spotlight, So I just stood there, and then the match started. But nowadays, if they did it again, I'd go do the Ric Flair match. I would, I don't know why. I'm just a lot smarter now than I was in those days. But I think now with this, I'm better off being smarter now than I was then. So now I'm smart enough to be able to leave that legacy on my way out. I know what to do and what not to do now. What not to do is the most important thing. That's why I really like watching my matches back on TV to see what not to do. Not what to do, but what not to do.
Yes, sir. And I can picture that. And in my head, I can see you and Ric Flair mirror images. I can see you mirroring Ric Flair. I think it would have been awesome.
Yeah, I get that all the time. You're Flair, no, but I get that all the time.
Well, I'm just talking about when he announced you as Ric Flair. Had you announced as Ric Flair, I can just see him doing the woo, and then you coming back and just kind of mimicking everything he does back to him. I think it would have been interesting.
It would have been. If I'd have been smart enough in those days, I would have done that. I taught him how to do the strut anyway. I'll take that. I taught him how to strut, I suppose.
There you go.
We were good. We were really cordial with one another. He was really, really good in my career.
So, next question, and after this one, I got one more, and then I'll let you get out of here and get back to your live.
I can stay here all night talking to the fans, doing the shows. I enjoy you. I sure appreciate you having me.
Hey, don't tempt me, because I like I told Mike, man, I could pick your brain all night long.
And Mike can talk too for a long time. He can talk to you.
Yes. I had a great conversation with him.
Yeah.
So we know who your favorite opponent is, person to work with in the ring. Where is your 100% favorite place you've ever worked? Territory, whatever. You've worked everywhere, so which one was your favorite? Or do you have a favorite?
Japan was one of my favorites. That was one of my goals when I first started to go to Japan. I should have been a little smarter in that, and I should have been a little more. I wasn't quite on point. I should have been a little bit more on point there and taken it a little more seriously. I guess Texas would have to be one with the Von Erichs. Memphis was another one. They're all so equal. I don't have one favorite over the other. But right here in Georgia, ain't no place like getting home in Georgia. I guess LaGrange, Georgia, right here. I'm always going to the ring every other month right here in town, and it's always good. I work all around this area every weekend somewhere, and right here in Georgia, it's been really good for me now in my later years.
Yeah, you've had how would you say you were now? 78?
I'll be 78 in March.
Man, that's a long time. You've devoted roughly a little over half of your life to
almost 50 years now devoted to pro wrestling.
Yes, sir. And so you're the perfect guy to ask this next question to. If a young guy or girl came to you aspiring to be a professional wrestler and to get into the wrestling business, what would be in your mind, what's the most important piece of advice you could give these people?
Like the guy told me, know your neck and listen to the music. Know how to wrestle. Don't worry about getting any kind of gimmick. Your wrestling will dictate what kind of gimmick you need to do. But go learn how to wrestle, and go and learn how to capture the people's emotions, or learn how to wrestle. Learn how the guys nowadays don't even know how to take a headlock. When I go in different territories, how can you have to take a headlock? They don't know. They go through training so fast, and they want to do all the stuff, but they forget the most important. It's people's emotions. The people sitting there waiting. They need to have their emotions emotioned to pay them back for that $10 or $12 they spent, or it's going to be $40 in the show we're going to up there. So we got to put in a lot of work, contain a lot of emotion. But that's the main thing. Is learn the business, learn your how to wrestle, Don't worry about a gimmick. Go out there and learn how to wrestle. Get your white towel, put it around your neck like Ronnie Garvin, and a pair of black trunks, and go be a wrestler. Learn how to wrestle, and then let that dictate what kind of gimmick you want to create, what kind of career you want to create around that knowledge of wrestling.
There you go. You heard it from the horse's mouth. And man, Chick, you've had one hell of a career. You influenced my life. Like I said, you're guys like you are the guys who made me want to be a professional wrestler. And it was 100% my honor and my pleasure to have you on here tonight.
If we got one more minute, I want to follow that up with a fan letter.
Okay.
I got a fan letter from a 14-year-old. They were ready to give up. Commit life, school, everything else, ready to give up. But through watching my matches, I guess on public media, where he was watching them on, he's only 14, that he made his mind up he would never give up because I never gave up. That only brings a tear to my eyes. That was enough to satisfy a whole career right there. He was going to give up, but through my work in the ring, he decided never to give up because I never gave up. I never gave up. That's a story I like telling in a lot of situations, but he never gave up, and because I never gave up. And that was so heartfelt when I read that letter. It was unbelievable, that letter from that young man at 14 years old, that he would never give up now because I never gave up. And I still never give up. And I don't know, I got to get out of the business one day, but I don't know how to do it. I ain't figured out how to give up yet. So I'm still going at it strong, and I can't wait to be right there in Arkansas.
Clarksville.
Clarksville. I can't wait to be there. I'm so excited. I'm on every day I go to the gym, boom, boom. I want to get better and better and look better and better to be able to walk that aisle when I get to Clarksville.
This kind of whole conversation, one theme running through it's been emotion in pro wrestling. Man, think about this. Even to this day, you're still influencing people's, not just wrestling in the wrestling, but influencing people's life. And you talk about evoking true emotion. That young man just evoked true emotion out of you.
Right. Oh yeah. Yes, sir.
That's got to be awesome, an awesome feeling to know that even to this day, the things you've done in your life and your career has an impact on people.
And the thing about wrestling is it has, some people give it a bad name, but we get people saved. We get people coming down the aisle and being saved to the Lord. And that young man through wrestling. Wrestling can be a good thing if we keep it a good thing. It's all about us as talent to keep it in a positive mode and don't let it get too far left. But keep that positive so it creates that good emotion to all the folks so they can be better people through what we do in the ring.
100%. Let me ask you this, since we're on this subject, I feel like wrestling, kind of like music, is a universal language. It seems like no matter where you go in the world, they have a version of professional wrestling.
Yes, so even before the kids, they have wrestling in the backyard, rings and set up, and they emulate what they see on the TV. But wrestling is viewed on TV so much. It comes in all these different sections, and it's probably one of the most viewed, maybe more as much as the Super Bowl, I guess. But it's a much over a period of a year's time. It probably has the biggest demographic of any TV show going. I think the professional wrestling does. And so it has a lot of influence on a lot of different people in a lot of different ways. And I want to keep the old school going personally, to keep that positive influence on our youngsters. And when I go around the ring, I let them carry my belt because that's the fans 20 years from now. And I like leaving in my finishes and my matches some type of life lesson. If I get mad, referee goes beat the referee, I have to say, I'm sorry, and I have to apologize to show them how big you get in life, how much you accomplish. You still got to answer to your Father in heaven or your Father at home or the guy in charge. You're still subservient to somebody, no matter how big you go. You got to be subservient. You got to, say thank you, I'm sorry, whatever the deal may be. But I like leaving those life lessons if at all possible in my matches.
Yes, sir, man. Life's all about lessons. I guess everybody does it. I wish I knew now what I knew I wish I knew now at 20 what I know now, I guess is how I want to say it. But
yeah,
You know,
Me too, brother. Me too.
it's just how life is. I feel like I feel like God gets us to our destination. We may not get there on the path that we would have liked to got there on, but I still feel like God gets us to where we are supposed to be in the end.
It's all in the right time. It's all in God's time. We're all in God's hand, and it leads us to be in the right time. And I feel this is a good time to go right to Arkansas, but well, I'm still able to really capture those emotions and satisfy a lot of folks' emotion, I guess, through my work in the ring.
Yes, sir. Going to be an awesome treat for fans in Arkansas. Not only
more a treat for me than them, I think.
Well, you know, it's funny, huh? Because when you're young, the younger you are, you don't really, you focus more on your needs and your thoughts and your wants. And the older you get, the more you realize that, you know, your needs are secondary most of the time.
Mm-hmm. Not going to ring, it's all about those people who paid that money. It might be the last $20 they had, but they came to see, and you owe them everything you got, every bit of talent you got. You owe it to them to capture that emotion and carry them through and make their night fulfilled.
Yes, sir. Chick, man, like I said, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it. It's been an honor and a pleasure talking to you. And you and your wife have a wonderful night, my friend.
Well, thank you. But it's more of an honor for me to be here than it is for you to have me. It's more of an honor for me to be on it with you, to be able to share a career and enlighten maybe somebody's emotion through what we've talked about.
Thank you so much, my friend.
Well, thank you very much. And I can't wait to be there. And
Clarksville,
Arkansas.
Yes, sir. November 2nd.
November 2nd. Clarksville. Be there.
Fan Fest starts at 2 p.m., 2 to 6. The matches start at 7. Don't miss an instant of it. Good night, my friend.
Yes, good night. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. All right, guys, you seen it right there. Golden Boy, Chick Donovan. You want to see this man in person? Be in Clarksville, Arkansas, Saturday, November 2nd. At the Spike for Kim exhibit building at the fairgrounds in Clarksville. It's a pro wrestling legend show. There's a fan fest that starts at 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. Wrestling starts at 7 p.m. Some of the stars you're going to see there, you're going to see the grapplers. You're going to see my guest tonight, the Golden Boy, Chick Donovan. You're going to see Action Mike Jackson, Miranda Gordy, Tommy Rich, Dangerous Doug Gilbert, Brian Kendrick, Mr. USA, Tony Atlas, Pineapple Jack, Samantha Starr, and the Perfect 10 Baby Doll. You're going to see Austin Ariel, Alexander Gold, and Preston Vance, and more of the Diamond State Wrestling Stars. Do not miss it. It's going to be an awesome event. Front row seats are $40. Second and third row seats are $30. General admission is $20. Be there and don't miss it. I want to thank everybody who tuned in tonight. I appreciate you watching. Like I said at the first, like, share, and go to Buster H.R. Johnson and subscribe to my channel. Hit the notification button. That way you don't even have to worry about it from now on out. I will be back tomorrow night, 7 p.m. with the Low Life. Deacon Pierce, former Crossroads heavyweight champion. We're going to talk to this young man and see what's going on. Y'all take it easy.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up.